Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fan Sports Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our Class 1B Week 2 game preview. And, we only got 8 teams in this league, and when one of them goes into COVID or pause, we only get 6 games total. So it's going to be a bit of a short show, but we're still going to have some good football this week, Mars.
Yeah, man. I mean, just the fact that people get to play games is obviously a big deal. And at the end of the day, you can't control everything when it comes to COVID. And, it really sucks for all those kids who won't get to play this week. And you just hope that they get back as soon as possible to be able to play as much of a season as they can.
Yeah, absolutely, Mars. But let's dive into it. And again, we have 3 games going, 6 total teams. Let's dive into the first game, Mars. Ardsley 1-0 at Putnam Valley, who's 0-1. Ardsley's 9-5 against Putnam Valley since 2004. They have won 7 straight, including 2 times in 2019. Last week, Ardsley beat Pearl River. Putnam Valley lost to Pleasantville. Ardsley has actually won 20 straight games for Section 1 teams, Mars. An unbelievable stat. But let's start with Ardsley, on the offensive end. And, they have really solid size up front. We knew this. They're not the tall, towering guys like they had last year, but they have thick guys, right? They have wide guys who can move people. And we know about their downhill running with Liberis, Mars. But what surprised me was their passing attack. I thought it was pretty solid, led by their quarterback, Balarge, the junior. He made some nice throws. He also made some... I'm not going to call it reckless, but he made some 50-50 throws. But I thought it was a good first start for him. The weapons impressed me. I mean, guys like, we know about Watson, obviously, someone I really like, but he had a bit of a quiet game last week. Guys like Peterson, guys like Jones, they all made some really nice plays. They both scored touchdowns. But I do think Putnam Valley struggled stopping the downhill run attack from Pleasantville, and I think that Ardsley is going to do something similar to that, Mars, running the ball downhill and also attacking the edges on outside runs. I think Ardsley could have some success if they do that. Defensively, I like the front 7. I know it's hard to run inside on this defensive line and linebacker crew. I did think they got a little hurt in the passing game, but I think what they're going to have to do is they were a bit of a bend but don't break, but they didn't really bend much, right? I mean, these guys, they blocked a field goal, which resulted in a touchdown. They forced some turnovers. I know they had a sack fumble. This is a pretty tough defense, well-coached team. A lot of guys graduated, but they still have a nice core of defenders. And I think, it all starts with them winning up front. And that's exactly what I think they have a good chance of doing. Mars, what are your thoughts on Ardsley?
Yeah, I mean, Ardsley has a lot of talent. They have a lot of good athletes, and each one of them kind of contributes in their own way. And I think that is a very dangerous thing to see on a team like this. I mean, Ardsley's been good for several years now, and I think that it has to do with their pipeline. I think it all starts with their whole program finds a way to kind of develop their players so that when they get to the varsity, each one of them is ready for their big moment. Yeah. I think that's a testament to the program. But Ardsley, like I said, has a good set of guys, a good set of skill players, and they find a way to really make the big plays. When it comes to defense, I think like you said, a good front 7. They control line of scrimmage, and when it comes to playing against Putt Valley, you need to be able to kind of just control the momentum, control the flow of the game, and I think the offense can flow pretty easily.
Yeah, and Putt Valley, moving to them, Mars, offensively, they showed up in the eye. So they were definitely different from last year where they were into the option offense. They went into the eye and they tried to run power offense. They tried to do some play action. But it will not be easy for Putt Valley to run in between the tackles against this front. So I do expect them to try to hit to the outside. I talked about Ardsley. Sometimes they ran into some issues on the edge or in the passing game. So Putt Valley, if they're going to have a chance, they're going to have to get on the edge, right? So it's not going to be very easy to run in between the tackles, but they can try to run off tackle. I think that would be their best success. Defensively, it also has to start with stopping the power run with Liberis with this offensive line and guys like Rivera and Salvia. I thought they were active on defense last week. They're going to have to be very active again this week if they're going to have a chance. The question I have is this defensive line. How are they going to hold up against this O-line? So that to me is the biggest question. I thought Putt Valley's defense battled early last week. Obviously, when the game got away, that's when things went awry. But I thought they battled early and kind of let go of the rope towards the end. I'm interested to see. They're going to have to battle for 4 quarters if they're going to have a chance. So we'll see what happens with this group. Mars, what are your thoughts on Putt Valley?
Yeah, when you look at their offense, they kind of shifted what they normally would do, and I mean they kind of changed it up. I mean, last year they were running option, they were running wishbone. They kind of had a lot of different looks. They even ran some types of trips. But last week they really didn't run much of anything that they did last year, and I feel like they kind of like to change it up, and I feel like that could be a positive for Putt Valley because. It means you're keeping a defense to now learn all these different formations, learn all these different plays because you're going to keep them guessing. And I think that's something that's going to be hard for Ardsley to do. But at the end of the day, when you look at Putt Valley's offensive scheme, like you said, try to run outside because you're not going to be able to run a power or just run you over against Ardsley. I mean, they have a good front seven. I think that it's going to be very difficult to do so, but you need a break to contain. Try to get Ardsley guessing where you're going to be, and then you have to defensively, you just need to make sure you control this rush offense.
Yeah.
I really think it's going to be difficult to do so, but if you can, then at least the score will not be as drastically large for Ardsley. It'll be kind of more manageable.
And the matchup I'm looking at the skill of Ardsley versus this Putt Valley secondary because I do think Ardsley is going to try to open up and throw the ball a little bit. Let's go to our next game, Mars. Byram Hills 1-0 at Hen Hud, also 1-0. These teams have split the series 2-2 since 2004. But Byram Hills has lost 2 straight to Hen Hud. And the last time they played them was in 2017. So these guys were 2 classic A matchups a few years back. But last week, Byram Hills beat Westlake. Hen Hud defeated Nanuet. Both had impressive victories, in my opinion. Byram Hills offensively, I mean, we know about this offensive line, but boy, did Wheeler show out. He made some seriously nice plays. He puts a lot of pressure on your defense. Again, for this guy, it's all about staying healthy for him because he is a force both in he can hit the home run and also run with some power. So he was obviously a big deal, Wheeler, but the offensive line did a really solid job. Wheeler had that 60-yard touchdown, and then he just wears you down. So, he was really impressive. But I am expecting to see a little bit more throwing going on. I'm expecting to see a little more edge action because Hen Hud is not easy to run against. They played pretty well last week. They have some size and some strength. So I'm expecting some quarterback Fruling and some wide receiver Franco. I think you're going to see those guys have some breakout games, attack the edge of the defense. Defensively, going up against a wing T offense, right? So you got to protect the C gaps, got to protect the D gaps. They also hit some of those traps up the middle. So they're going to test the discipline of this defense in all 3 levels. And but one thing we know for sure is Hen Hud wants to run the ball, Mars. So that's going to be the big key: stopping the run, forcing them to go into a passing style offense. And if you can get them in long distance situations, that's when your defensive end, you can get your DNs to start going after the quarterback and start hunting like a guy like Ratson. Mars, what are your thoughts on Byram Hills?
I mean, Byram Hills, it's really simple. I mean, I think they're going to need to open it up. Hendrick Hudson is defensively can stop the run. I feel like they have a good front seven. They have a good way of controlling the line of scrimmage, and I really think that. I mean, Wheeler is a hell of a talent. He kind of finds his way to kind of to make plays. And I think that's what you saw that last week. Once they start feeding him the ball, it was kind of like. It was a run show. I mean, he was just doing anything he wanted. Yeah. When it comes to what they need to do defensively, I mean, you're playing against a wing T style offense, so you're going to have to kind of narrow down any of the big plays, especially off the edges to the C gaps. And if you could do so, and then you mentioned this. I mean, Hendrick Hudson is looking to run the ball. I mean, that is going to be a strategy that is actually going to be in your favor because I think Byram Hills at the end of the day can narrow down their focus, knowing that if you can stop the run, force Hen Hud to have to do a kind of a longer throw, and then the luck is in your favor. Yeah. Really the odds are in your favor on that one.
Going on to Hen Hud, Mars, I thought Hen Hud had an impressive victory. I think they have a nice little trio on offense with their backs with Artope, Travis, Cepeda. They can hit you inside, they can hit you outside. But I was also impressed by their front. Again. Not the tallest guys. You're not talking about towers out there, but they have some thickness to them. They block hard. They move their feet. And I was impressed, But number 75 is a big boy. I'm not sure who he is. I couldn't spot him on the roster. But others, on the offensive line, led by Catherine Sager, Burns, Godino, they have some toughness to them. I was impressed. But I do think we know what they want to do. They want to try to ride this rush attack. So that's going to be really important. for this team to get into those manageable situations and run play action off of that stuff. That's going to be big for them. Defensively, Mars, I really thought the activity from the D-line and the linebackers in their game versus Nanuet was impressive because Nanuet, I think, had a size advantage over them. But, they rally to the ball. They attack you. They bring some strength to them. They were an aggressive unit, and I think this can be an impressive unit. I was impressed by this group. Mars, what are your thoughts on Hen Hud?
Yeah, when you look at Hen Hud, I really like their skill players. I think the fact that you, like you said, you have a trio of them, it just opens up the possibility of who's going to get the big play for you. And I think that's just a hard thing to defend against, in my opinion. I think when you're a defensive-minded coach and you see a lot of times if a team has got one guy or maybe two guys, it's easy to kind of say, all right, well, whenever you see this play on the field, expect to get it to him. But when you have three, I mean, you have multiple. Other than just one is just a hard thing to stop, and I think that's going to be in Hen Hud's favor for sure. And for them, they just need to make sure they try to always be positive on their run plays.
Yeah,
you never go back, you never go backward, because as you mentioned, if you can get the ball to be a third and manageable, 3rd and 4. You can easily get that type of first down. I mean, but if you end up being like a 3rd and 8, now you're going to have to depend on a longer pass. I mean, it's not like they can't throw your passes, but it's more just the fact that
it's more difficult.
It's more difficult to do, and when you're close to the line, close to the first down, you can the plethora of plays you can call opens up, and I think that would be in the favor of Hen Hud. And defensively, like you said, I mean, they came out to be very aggressive, very strong, and I think that they're going to need to be with Byram Hills having a plethora of talent on this offense, and they need to make sure they bottle up Wheeler. I mean, as hard that of a statement that really is, that's going to be their game plan. Let's bottle him up. Let's let somebody else defeat us, not Wheeler.
Which they have guys to do that as well. But for me, the matchup in this one is the battle in the trenches, because both of those groups impressed me on both sides of the ball. I'm interested to see who comes out on top in that matchup. Mars, let's go to our game of the week. Again, there's only 3 games this week out of the B class, but our game of the week is Pearl River 0-1 at Pleasantville, who is 1-0. Mars, we'll have you talk about this one, even though normally we don't like to talk about a certain program. But these teams have split this series since 2004. Pearl River and Pleasantville, 2-2 versus each other. But Pearl River has won the last 2 games, and that was both last year versus Pleasantville. And they outscored them last year 67-14, Mars. Last week Pearl River lost to Ardsley. Pleasantville defeated Putnam Valley. Pearl River battle and Ardsley was a really close game for a long period of time. It was a back-and-forth game. But let's start with Pearl River. And offensively, again, I thought it was a really close game. I thought it's really tough to run the ball inside against Ardsley, and you saw that. It wasn't that easy. They did have some nice plays, but for the most part, it was difficult to run. But what did impress me was their pass attack was solid. I thought it was smooth. I thought the quarterback was making nice, quick decisions, and I could see them try to do that, go into the spread a little bit more, because they do that mix of wing tee and spread. They might go into the spread a little bit more and try to throw it around, because Pleasantville up front is also strong. So we might see if they test Pleasantville's secondary. Pleasantville's linebackers are not that big, but they rally hard. So I'm interested to see how they attack this. Maybe they start running out on the edge a little bit, because it won't be that easy running in the middle, and I do think they open it up and try to pass it a little bit, Mars. Defensively, I think this is going to be the slugfest right here. I really like Pearl River's front 7. They cause a lot of issues. Even in the back end, they have a guy like Sassano. But led by Cheristal, Fitzpatrick, Responti, Haas-Haj, linebacker Sullivan. This is a tough unit. I mean, they made life difficult for Ardsley. The big thing they have to do is they're going to have to stop May. I mean, May is going to be a big one. If they can bottle up May, that will make life easier for Pearl River. Make them become either a throwing team or make them have to go to somebody else. That's going to be big. Another thing before I pass on to you, Mars, that I didn't mention offensively, they got to prevent turnovers. That was really what hurt them. Blocked field goal, a sack fumble. They were driving a little bit, but they got stalled because they were turning the ball over. They couldn't finish drives. Mars, what are your thoughts on Pearl River?
Yeah, I mean, Pearl River is going to try to pass the ball. I mean, I feel like they're going to try to test the secondary, because I feel like when you look at Pleasantville, you say the front seven's probably their stronger unit. I feel like they do have skilled players on the back end as well. But when you look at all around, I just think that Pearl River is going to test the secondary, see what coverages they come out in, and then try to find the mismatch. At the end of the day, I really look at this defense and I say the front seven definitely is the strongest part of this team in general. I think that, when you look at Pleasantville, they're more of a run-heavy style team. And, it seems like it's going to be a matchup for the ages. I mean, Pearl River's front seven versus Pleasantville's front line and backs. And it's going to be a question of who can outlast the other. I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be tough. It's never easy against a good front seven, but it's really going to have to be a kind of a unit versus unit victory. I mean, I know you can't pick out one particular guy, but to say that, I think that Pleasantville has backs, they have line, it's going to be a tough fight.
All right, I'll talk about Pleasantville, Morrison. Offensively, you made some good points. Lean on that offensive line. It was really successful last week, and I imagine they're going to do the same thing this week. And I think they have a nice little duo with May. And is it Picard or Picard?
Picard.
Picard. I mean, this young man is a freshman, and he had that long touchdown run. He's a guy who I think complements May pretty well. May's a bit of a shifty guy, runs hard. Picard is an explosive back, right? So he's that home run hitter. I think it's a nice complement to each other, and it opens things up for them. Now it opens up the passing game for La Capria to throw it to guys like Sophia and McDermott. This offense could open things up. If they can get a couple of those backs going and they can get protection up front, that'll open up the passing game because I think they're going to have to pass it because it's not easy to run against this front. It isn't. Pearl River is strong. We mentioned all those guys that they have that can really make a lot of plays. So this is going to be really interesting. I think they were going to have to throw it a little bit to be successful. Mars defensively, again, I think they have the pieces to stop the run. I think they will be tested a little bit, but I think the secondary is really what's going to have to take on this mantle because I do think Pearl River is going to try to throw the ball a little bit. And we're going to see. If they could stop the run and get a guy like Collins to try to cause some mayhem, especially in passing situations, I do like Pleasantville's chances to pull out this victory. Mars, we'll go to the matchup to watch and the player to watch. The matchup to me, and you kind of mentioned it, I mentioned it, it's this Pleasantville offensive line versus the defensive front of Pearl River. I mean, that's going to be the slugfest that we're looking for, both of us, no doubt. And the player, in my opinion, is their edge defender, Hodson Cheristol from Pearl River. I mean, this guy could be a game wrecker. He's one of those athletic freak guys. He was making plays on the field last week. I think this is an opportunity for him to make a statement game and be, kind of solidify himself as one of the best players on the field. And that's somebody I'm definitely going to look for. All right, Mars, you want to pick the games?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to roll.
All right, well, you're going to pick two of them. I'm going to pick all three for obvious reasons. But let's start with the Ardsley at Putnam Valley game, Mars. Ardsley 1-0, Putnam Valley 0-1. Does Ardsley's long streak end?
No, it doesn't. I don't think so. I think Ardsley is a top-tier talent team. It has a lot of skilled players, a lot of good players on all fronts. I really like how they can beat you with multiple different players, and I think that's the scary part about them is that they have so many guys that you have to account for on the offense. And then the defensive point of view, the front seven is one of the most difficult ones to go up against. And I think, Putt Valley is just right now. I think they're trying to find their identity. Yeah. They don't know what they are. You can. There's nothing wrong with changing your scheme.
Yeah.
I just feel like they don't know exactly what is the best route going forward for them when it comes to what offense best fits them. And I feel like just looking at how they played against Pleasantville, that's just what it was. They just didn't look natural to them what they were doing. So I just feel like this is going to be kind of some growing pains for Putt Valley.
I'm going to go with Ardsley as well. Putt Valley is a young team trying to figure themselves out. Ardsley, they have an established coaching staff. They have an established program, and they're just ready to go. They're revved up. I think Ardsley is going to pull the victory on this one. Let's go to the next one, Mars. Byram Hills 1-0 at Hen Hud, which is also 1-0. Who do you have and why?
This one's a tough one, but I'm going to go with Hen Hud. I think they have a trio of players. I mean, they have a lot of skill behind them, and I think that they they're really going to try to run over Byram Hills and then try to open up the pass in a lot of these different scenarios. And I think that Hen Hud, I think it's going to be a showdown of a game. I mean, Byram Hills is another top-tier program, and it's really just going to be that interesting matchups. I think it's going to be whoever can control the pace of the game, whoever can slow down the other when it comes to running the ball. I mean, I think that Hen Hud's goal to victory is, like I said before, slow down Wheeler. Right? If you slow down Wheeler, it'll throw Byram Hills off their track, or at least slow them down of their normal flow of the game, and allow for the skill players on Hen Hud to really open up the game for themselves, to really try to take a lead and then maybe run out the clock. I feel like that's kind of the game plan here.
I'm going with Byram Hills. I think Byram Hills, it's a lot easier to say to stop Wheeler than to actually do it. And when you try to stop the power run game, they can use their speed. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Byram Hills, if for some way that they stop Wheeler, then you're going to see a lot of Steven Franco. You're going to see a lot of Hayden Fruling. I think you'll even see some Zach Tillinger. So, I think there's just too many weapons for Byram Hills. I don't think Hen Hud has enough. And I'm going to go with Byram Hills to pull this one off. Finally, Marks, the last one, Pearl River, 0-1 at Pleasantville. Is Pearl River going to bounce back, or is Pleasantville going to start the year off 2-0? And for me, I'm going to go with Pleasantville. I think they are going to get a little bit of revenge. Pearl River kind of beat them up last year. Let's just call it what it is, outscoring them 67 to something. I think it was like 14. But I think Pleasantville is going to show the ability to – it's not going to be easy to run, but I think they'll run enough. And I think they'll make some plays out on the edge. I think the X factor in Picard, brings a new dynamic to this offense. I think they'll pass the ball a little bit, but I do what I think is going to be. It's a low-scoring game, and I think Pleasantville is going to play good enough defense and force some turnovers that they're going to pull off a close one in this one. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. I know it was a little bit of a short one, but again, when one of the games gets pulled out, now we only have a few games to talk about, but I appreciate everyone tuning into the show. I hope you guys have a safe and sports-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.